Welcome back to my channel, Revenge with Melissa.
Before I take you back to the moment my mother chose my sister over me for the last time, and I do mean the last time, let me tell you who I was when this happened. My name is Taylor. I'm 34. I am a senior project manager at a civil infrastructure firm, the youngest person in company history to hold that title. I manage multi-million-dollar timelines. I coordinate engineers, city officials, and contractors across 5 counties. I am very good at keeping things organized, keeping things moving, and keeping things together. The irony? I could not see that my own family was a project that had been off the rails for 22 years. Here's how our family worked in case you didn't grow up in one like mine. There was my sister Josie, 30 years old, smart, beautiful, and the most gifted emotional actor I have ever watched in real time. She could turn on tears the way you flip a light switch. Not slowly, immediately. Like a switch. And there was me, Taylor. The strong one. The reliable one. The one who handles things. In families like mine, those labels aren't compliments. They're job descriptions. The strong one absorbs the damage. The fragile one gets the shield. And our parents, our mother Linda especially, ran that system like a well-oiled machine. It started when I was 12 years old, the year she asked me to move my bedroom down to the basement. Josie needed her own room. For her creativity. I carried my bed sheets down 2 flights of stairs without saying a word. My father stood in the doorway of the basement that night. I could hear him breathing. I watched the shadow of his shoes under the gap. He raised his hand. I thought he was going to knock, say something, anything. He turned around and walked back upstairs. That was the first time I learned that love without action is just a feeling somebody keeps to themselves. Fast forward to 3 days before that Thursday night. I'm at my parents' dining table with my laptop open, helping my dad reconcile his bank statement. Something I do every month because numbers make him nervous. And that's when I see it. One charge. Then another. Then 14 more. $4,200. Spread across 3 weeks. All on my parents' joint card.
Boutique clothing site.
A luxury skincare subscription. A handbag reseller. Not one business expense. Now context. Josie had told our parents she needed the card for startup inventory. Her online boutique. Her 3rd business idea in 2 years. My parents believed her because they always believed her. Can you believe the audacity? I kept my voice completely level at dinner that night. I am a project manager. I know how to deliver bad news without burning the room down. Josie, I said, these charges don't match any wholesale supplier I can find. She didn't blink. She picked up her fork. You went through my purchases. Dad asked me to reconcile the statement. They're right there. Her fork went down. And then the switch. Her eyes filled. Not slowly. Immediately. You always do this. You always have to make me look bad. I'm not making you look like anything, the receipts are. I can't do this. She pushed back from the table. The chair scraped the floor. You have no idea how hard I'm trying. And all you do is judge. She was gone. Doorshut. And within 30 seconds my mother was on her feet. Napkin crumpled in her fist, staring at me like I had just set the table on fire. She didn't say a word. She didn't need to. Josie's weapon was never volume. It was tears. 3 days later. Thursday evening. I'm standing at my parents' kitchen sink. Warm water running over a casserole dish. Same routine I've kept every other week for 6 years since I moved out. The house smells like garlic bread and lemon cleaner. Everything is normal. Everything is fine. Except Josie has been in my mother's bedroom with the door shut for over an hour. I dry my hands on the striped towel. Folded in thirds, force of habit. That's when the bedroom door opens. My mother walks out first. Her face is set. Not angry. Decided. Your sister says she gets sick every time she sees your face. I need you to pack your things tonight. I looked past her down the hall. My father was standing near the coat closet, one hand on the doorframe, eyes on the floor. Did you ask what actually happened between us? I don't need to. Her chin lifted. I folded the towel one more time, set it on the counter, walked upstairs, packed my gray duffel bag in under 4 minutes. I know because I counted. I walked back downstairs, past my father, past the coat closet, past 22 years of swallowed feelings. I set my house key on the kitchen counter right next to the folded towel. I didn't slam the door. I closed it the way you close a chapter you've read too many times. For days of silence. Not one call. Not one text. Not from my mother, not from my father. You know what they were waiting for? The pattern to complete. The part where I call first, apologize for making it worse, and offer to smooth everything over so we can all pretend it never happened. I didn't call. Day 4. 11:47 in the morning. My phone buzzes. Dad. I almost let it ring. But something in me, that 12-year-old girl watching his shadow under the basement door, still answers when he calls. Hey Tiff. So, your mother's been upset. His voice was careful, measuring twice before cutting. The anniversary party is in 3 weeks and we need to figure out the seating chart. I let 10 seconds pass. I counted them. Is that why you're calling, Dad? I'm calling because we need to talk about this. You had a chance to talk about it. You watched Mom tell me to pack my bags and you said nothing. That's not fair, Tiff. Exactly. I hung up. My husband Marcus was in the doorway. He'd heard the whole thing. He called about the seating chart, I said. Marcus exhaled through his nose. Not a laugh. Something closer to confirmation. I closed my laptop, placed both hands flat on the desk. My mother kicked me out of her house because my sister said my face makes her sick. And my father called 4 days later to talk about where people sit at dinner. I was done being the padding between this family's furniture. Day 6. 2 missed calls from Mom. 1 voicemail. Marcus accidentally plays it, same phone case, same ringtone. He holds it out to me, eyebrows raised. I press play. Tiffany, this has gone on long enough. Your father and I want you at the anniversary. Jocelyn is willing to put this behind her. We all need to move forward as a family. 43 seconds. That's it. I listened to it twice. Notice the framing, I say to Marcus. I'm in project mode now. The same part of my brain that catches scope creep in a contractor's email is dissecting every word. Jocelyn is willing. Not we're sorry. Not we were wrong. Jocelyn is willing to forgive me for something I didn't do. And the deadline? The anniversary party. She didn't call to check on me. She called to manage me. For the first time in my life, I could hear the difference. Night 3. After Marcus goes to bed, I sit at the kitchen table with my laptop. I open a blank spreadsheet. Same template I use for project risk assessments. Columns, date, event, who said what, result. I start typing. Not to build a case. Not to prepare a fight. I just need to see it laid out clean, linear, the way I see everything else in my professional life. In project management, when a deliverable keeps failing, you don't just fix the latest failure. You trace the pattern. You find the recurring variable. You map the dependency chain until you see where the system breaks. By night 7, I had 37 rows, 12 years of data, and the pattern was undeniable. Josie fails, Josie cries, Mom reassigns blame to me, I absorb it, Josie is shielded, cycle resets. Roughly twice a year. For over a decade. This isn't a family, Marcus said, reading over my shoulder. This is a project with a broken scope. And then Aunt Ruth called. My mother's younger sister. A woman I'd never been close to, because my mother had kept distance between us for years. She said something that stopped me cold. Tiffany, your mother is doing to you exactly what our mother did to me. When I finally called her back on day 7, she explained everything. My grandmother had 2 daughters. My mother Linda was the favorite, the one who got the new shoes, the first choice of bedroom, the praise at the dinner table. Ruth was the responsible one, the invisible one, told to keep the peace. Your mother didn't invent this system, Tiffany. She inherited it. Ruth's voice was steady as a pulse. She was the favorite. She learned that families work by picking one child to protect and one to absorb the damage. When she had daughters of her own, she did what she knew. I was quiet for a long time. Don't wait 30 years to stand in front of a mirror and say this wasn't your fault, Ruth said. Don't make my mistake. Then she said one more thing. If you're going to that party, don't go alone. And don't go empty-handed. I want to be very clear. I did not go to that party to blow it up. I went because my mother had been telling 60 guests that my marriage was falling apart. That was why I hadn't been around. She would rather 60 people believe my marriage was failing than admit she kicked her own daughter out of the house. She could push me out. She could ignore me. But she does not get to rewrite my story. Ruth was already inside when Marcus and I pulled into the Belantes' parking lot. Seated near the door. One gnawed through the glass. I wore a charcoal blazer over a camel blouse. The kind of outfit I'd wear to a board presentation. My mother saw me first. Her face flickered relief, then something sharper. She knew something was different. She just couldn't figure out what. The private dining room was draped in ivory and gold. 63 guests. And there was Josie working the room like a campaign manager, hugging ants, refilling water glasses, clicking across the hardwood in coral heels with an authority she had absolutely not earned. Then the slideshow started. 46 photos. My parents' wedding. Their first apartment. Josie as a baby. Josie's first day of school. Josie at her graduation. Josie at the beach. Josie blowing out birthday candles while my parents beamed. I counted. I appeared in 3. One was a wide family shot where I'm standing at the edge. One was me at age 6, half hidden behind my father's leg. The third cut off at my shoulder. 46 photos. 3 with me in frame. 0 where I'm the subject. Uncle Ray, my father's older brother, retired postmaster, no tolerance for nonsense, glanced at me from across the room. His brow furrowed. I sipped my water. I smiled at anyone who caught my eye. I was calm. I was present. And I was watching everything. After dessert was cleared, Josie stood up. Someone handed her the microphone. She smoothed her dress, tucked her hair behind her ears, smiled. I want to say a few words about the 2 most incredible people I know. The room settled. Phones face down. 63 people giving Josie exactly what she'd always wanted. Undivided attention. Mom and Dad, 40 years. That's not just a number. That's a lifetime of choosing each other every single day. And I want to thank you for always believing in me. Even when things were hard. Even when not everyone in this family made it easy. Her eyes flicked to me. Just for a second. But enough. But family is about forgiveness. And I'm so glad my sister is here tonight, because it shows we can move past anything. She raised her glass. The room followed. My mother dabbed at her eyes. My father lifted his glass without looking at me. To Mom and Dad. To 40 more years. And to family. Messy, imperfect, beautiful family. Applause. Josie sat down to hugs and shoulder squeezes. She just rewrote the entire narrative in front of 63 witnesses. She made herself the gracious forgiver. She made me the one who needed forgiving. I set my glass down. Untouched. And I stood up. I didn't reach for the microphone. I didn't need it. I'd like to add to that toast if that's all right. 63 faces turned. My mother's hand froze on Josie's shoulder. My father's glass stopped halfway to his lips. Jocelyn said family is about forgiveness. I agree. My voice was level. Project room steady. The same tone I use when a contractor misses a deadline, and the room is full of people who don't want to hear it. But forgiveness requires honesty, and there has been very little honesty in this family for a very long time. The last murmur died. 3 weeks ago, my mother told me to pack my bags and leave her house. That night, no discussion, no questions, because Jocelyn told her that looking at my face makes her sick. A ripple moved through the room. Not sound, movement. A cousin leaning forward. An uncle setting down his fork. Aunt Helen's hand going to her mouth. Nobody in this room was told that. Some of you were told I was having marriage problems. That's not true. My marriage is fine. I was removed from my parents' home because it was easier to remove me than to hold my sister accountable for $4,200 she charged to our parents' credit card on personal shopping, which she called business expenses. Josie's face drained of color. My mother started to stand. Tiffany, this is not the place. You chose the place, Mom. My voice didn't rise. Didn't need to. You chose a party with 60 people over a single honest conversation with your daughter. Silence. Real silence. Listening silence. I kept going. Calm. Specific. Dated. When I was 12, I was moved to the basement so Jocelyn could have her own room. When I was 22, my parents left my college graduation early because Jocelyn had a headache. When I was 28, I called my mother to share the biggest promotion of my career. She told me Jocelyn's boss had yelled at her and asked if she could call me back. I paused. She never called back. And then Ruth stood up. She doesn't rush it. She rises the way she does everything. Measured, deliberate. Her nurse is calm, filling the space. She's telling the truth. Ruth's voice was steady. I watched the same thing happen to me in this family 30 years ago. Our mother did it to Linda and me. And now Linda has done it to Tiffany and Jocelyn. The room turned to my mother. Linda's face was white. Uncle Ray spoke from the second table. Low. Direct. The voice of a man who spent 40 years dealing in facts. Is that true, Linda? You kicked her out. My mother didn't answer. She looked at Josie. Josie looked at the floor. 63 people. One question. No answer. Josie stood. Her chair scraped. The same sound it made 3 weeks ago at that dining table. But this time there was nowhere to run. The room was full. The door was 30 feet away. And every face she turned to was waiting. Not rescuing. You're lying. You're always lying about me. Her voice shook. Not the practiced tremble. The real kind. The kind that comes when the ground you've been standing on turns out to be someone else's floor. Nobody nodded. Nobody rushed in. Nobody said, "Let's all just calm down." The room held still. Uncle Ray cut in. Then why are 60 people here, Linda? Josie swept the room one final time, looking for the lifeline, the sympathetic face, the outstretched hand. She didn't find it. She picked up her clutch, walked toward the door. Her heels on the hardwood, slower now. Unsteady. She didn't look back. My mother followed. The door swung shut behind them. I stood for 3 more seconds. Then I sat down. Marcus put his hand on my knee under the table. Not a squeeze. Just presence. My father was still in his chair. He hadn't moved. He hadn't followed my mother out. For 34 years, Gary's instinct in every family crisis was to follow Linda's lead. Close the door and wait for the noise to stop. Tonight, for the first time in 34 years, he stayed. And that meant something. I want to talk about the begging. Because that's the title. And I keep my promises. But first, the days between the party and the doorbell. Because the begging didn't come from nowhere. Came from a collapse. And I need you to understand exactly how complete that collapse was. The morning after the party, my phone started buzzing. Not from my mother. Not from Josie. From the outer ring, the 63 witnesses. Cousin Megan texted first. I sat there watching that slideshow, Taylor. 46 photos. 3 of you. I'm so sorry I never said anything. Uncle Ray called Monday morning.
No preamble.
I've known your mother for 40 years. Something never added up. I should have pushed harder a long time ago. Aunt Helen, the same woman who called me 2 weeks earlier and told me to be the bigger person, called 4 days after the party. Her voice was smaller than I'd ever heard it. I asked your mom what happened the night she told you to leave. She didn't deny it, Taylor. She just went quiet. I owe you an apology. For people in 4 days. People who had watched this family for decades and chosen, every single time, to look away. Now they were looking. But here's what was happening on the other side of that silence. The side I didn't know about yet. When Josie walked out of Belanti's that night, she didn't go home and cry. She went home and calculated. She knew the public humiliation had cost her the one thing she'd always been able to count on. The family's willingness to protect her quietly. That shield was gone. And without it, the math of her life stopped working. So she did what she'd always done when the numbers didn't add up. She reached for someone else's money. What I didn't know, what none of us knew until it was over, was that the $4,200 Josie had charged to our parents' card wasn't just shopping money. My parents had a payment due. Property taxes. The kind of bill that doesn't negotiate, doesn't send reminders, doesn't care about family dynamics. $3,100. Due at the end of the month. It had been sitting in their joint account, earmarked and untouched. Until Josie got to it. The boutique charges had wiped it clean. And when my father finally sat down with the full statement after the party, the one I'd flagged weeks earlier, the one nobody wanted to look at, he saw it. All of it. What Josie had taken. What was gone. What they owed. What was coming. He called their bank. The conversation was short. Then, and this is the part that still lands like a stone when I think about it, Josie came back to the house the following week. Not to apologize. Not to explain. To collect the rest. While my parents were at a follow-up appointment with their bank, she let herself in with her key. Cleaned out the small emergency fund my father kept in an envelope in his desk drawer. 300 years of habit, cash for a real emergency, and took the one piece of jewelry my mother had never sold, her mother's gold bracelet. Then she left. No note. No call. Just gone. My father found the empty envelope. Called Josie's phone. Straight to voicemail. Called her apartment. The line was disconnected. She had simply exited the system. And without Josie there to rescue, without a crisis to absorb, without a role to perform, my mother had nothing left to hold on to. No classroom. No student. No purpose. Just a house she couldn't afford to keep and a husband who was finally, for the first time in their marriage, telling her the truth about what had happened. I found this out from Ruth, who found it out from my father, who called her because he had no one else to call. The county moved fast on the property taxes. Faster than my parents expected. A lien is not a negotiation. A lockout notice is not a conversation. 10 days after the anniversary party, they had 72 hours to vacate. 10 days after the party, I'm in the kitchen. Marcus is in the study. The house is quiet. I'm 16 weeks pregnant, sitting with a cup of decaf and a project brief, and everything in my immediate world is calm and ordered in mine. My phone screen lights up. Security camera alert. Front door. Pick it up. Tap the notification. The camera feed loads. And I sat there for a moment. Just sat there. My mother and father were standing on my front porch in the rain. It was 11:07 at night. My mother had on her good coat, the navy one she saves for church and court dates. My father had his collar up against the weather. His jaw was set the way it gets when he's past embarrassed and into something worse. Between them, 3 suitcases. The large plaid one I recognized from every family vacation I was ever packed into or left behind from. A smaller black one. And a duffel bag, not mine. His. I set my phone face down on the table. I sat with that image for 60 seconds. I know because I counted the same way I counted to 10 before I hung up on my father 2 weeks earlier. Old habit. Give yourself the runway before you speak. Then I stood up, walked to the front door, opened it. They were exactly as the camera had shown them. Rain damp. Tired in the specific way that isn't about sleep, the way that comes from a week of consequences arriving all at once. My mother's eyes went to my stomach first, then to my face. My father looked at the porch boards. Taylor. My mother's voice was stripped of everything. The classroom authority, the management tone, the 53-second voicemail efficiency. Just my name. 2 syllables. Jocelyn took everything. The tax payment. Your grandfather's emergency money. My mother's bracelet. The county sent a notice. We have, she stopped, pressed her lips together. We have nowhere to go tonight. I looked at her, then at my father, then at the 3 suitcases lined up on my porch like a project deliverable finally arriving. Late, damaged, and someone else's problem. I want to be honest with you about what I felt in that moment. Because this is the part people get wrong when they tell this kind of story. They expect rage, or satisfaction, or some clean cinematic sense of justice arriving right on cue. What I actually felt was tired and clear. The same exhaustion I packed into that gray duffel bag on a Thursday night. The kind that has stopped asking. I need you both to understand something, I said. My voice was level. It always is when it matters. What happened to your house is a consequence of choices that were made over a long time. By Josie. And by the 2 of you, who protected her from consequences until there were none left to absorb. My father nodded once. A slow downward motion. The nod of a man who has no argument left. My mother didn't speak. You can stay in the guest room tonight. One night. Tomorrow we are going to sit down, all 3 of us, and talk about what comes next. Not what's comfortable. Not what keeps the peace. What is actually true. And if that conversation goes the way it needs to go, we'll talk about what support looks like going forward. If it doesn't, I paused. You'll need to make other arrangements. I stepped back from the doorway. They came inside. My father carried the large suitcase. My mother carried nothing. She stood in our entryway, the house she'd never once visited in the 4 years Marcus and I had lived here, and looked at the walls, the framed photos, the life I had built in her complete absence, and she said nothing. Marcus came out of the study. He looked at me. I looked at him. He went and made tea without being asked. That is the man I married. I showed my parents to the guest room. Fresh towels on the rack. The door had a lock. Pointed it out. Good night, I said. I closed the door. Walked back down the hall. Sat at the kitchen table. Marcus came and set a mug in front of me. Sat down across from me. Didn't say anything for a long moment. You okay? He finally asked. Yeah. I wrapped both hands around the mug. I'm clear. And I was. Here's what I want you to take from this. Not the party. Not the doorbell. Not the suitcases in the rain or the suitcases on the porch or any of the satisfying, visible moments where the consequences finally arrived. I want you to take the spreadsheet. 37 rows. 12 years of data. A pattern I couldn't see while I was living inside it. The moment I stopped absorbing and started documenting, that was the actual turning point. Everything else followed from that. My mother needed someone to manage. My sister needed someone to perform against. My father needed someone to shield his wife from the truth. I was the structural load bearer for a house that was always going to fall. I just finally stopped holding it up. Oh, and I'm pregnant. 16 weeks. I mention it last because this story isn't about the baby. The baby is why the story matters. My child will never move to a basement to make room for someone else's creativity. My child will never stand at the edge of a photo, cropped to a shoulder. My child will never call home with good news and hear silence in return. This guest room has a lock on the door. So does the nursery. And I'm the one with the keys.